Only a day keeps the fascists away.
The process of science, along with our hard-won scientific body of knowledge, has enabled us to feed and care for the world's billions, build great cities, cure diseases, create global transportation and communication systems, and even know our place among the stars.
So we're gathered here in front of the Lincoln Memorial. It's a sacred civic space, and we're celebrating the achievements of science over decades in bettering the human condition and advocating for strong public support at a time when serious threats of harm are happening.
You may not see it at first glance, but I have cerebral palsy. My mother went into labor more than 3 months early, and the treatments that helped ensure my survival were made possible by NIH-funded research. Just 4 years before I was born. Without that science, I might not be able to walk. I might not be alive at all. My very existence is a testament to the power of NIH research and the lives it transforms. That's why I chose to dedicate my life to science. At the NIH, I've worked to develop new therapies to improve the lives of other children with cerebral palsy. Now, I'm advancing our understanding of the brain. I hope to give back to the institution that gave me my health. But because of so-called efficiency cuts imposed by the Trump administration, I am forced to stop this critical work, even as an unpaid volunteer. It begs the question, how does stopping ongoing research make our government more efficient? How can these cuts be driven by fiscal responsibility when scientists are prevented from working for free? These cuts to NIH funding aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're life-threatening. They mean people with cancer go untreated. They mean those with Alzheimer's will continue into cognitive decline. This is a fight for lives. Lives like mine, like yours, like those we love. And when we fight, we win!
Everybody in America should be mad and angry about what we are witnessing right now in our country, including the illegal and reckless attacks on science by Elon Musk and the Trump administration.
They'll use these lies to take down entire agencies like USAID. They are now doing it at NIH, at CDC, at FDA, and beyond.
Shame.
Shame.
They claim that because scientists sometimes change their minds, then that means that science itself might be not trustworthy. They fault science for not providing immediate answers. But these are all false claims. They're mischaracterizations of science, and they are dangerous. The truth is that science does not offer immediate answers. Science does not offer absolute certainty. That's not what science is about. Science is an unpredictable process, but science delivers. Time and time again, what we see is that when we let scientists follow their curiosity, then amazing things happen. Spectacular discoveries, important, crucial innovations emerge. And often, they come from a field that's totally unrelated from where the research started out. I'll give you an example. In my own lab, we set out to study how our ancestors lost their tails 25 million years ago. Along the way, we found insight into a devastating birth defect that was totally unpredictable. What about CRISPR? It's an amazing genetic engineering tool, And yet, who would have thought that the way you discover it is by studying bacteria and their immunity? Do you think that it's a coincidence that the U.S. has the best science and also the U.S. has the best economy?
You know, we're concerned that we don't want to be the same fate that the dinosaurs had when an asteroid 6 miles in diameter came in and hit the Earth about the Yucatan Peninsula and destroyed all the dinosaurs. We're actually using science and physics as we, first of all, scan the heavens with our telescopes to find a killer asteroid, and we did an experiment called DART, where we actually, 7 million miles from Earth, we hit the bullseye at 14,000 miles an hour, and we moved its trajectory. I can tell you, when you go into space and you look back at this beautiful Earth, you come away with a sense of awe that you want to be a better steward of what we have been given. And so the final thing I leave you with is, as I orbited the Earth every 90 minutes, I look back through my eyes as an elected official, and I did not see racial division, I did not see religious division, and I did not see political division. What I saw is we are all in this together as citizens of planet Earth.
Why are we protecting our planet? Because we live here, damn it! Climate change isn't just about greenhouse gases, it's about air quality and extreme heat and public health.
As a queer, non-binary public health professional, I feel uniquely qualified when I say diversity, equity, and inclusion are not just ideals to strive for. They are essential to the very integrity of public health and science. During the early days of Hitler's regime, the Nazis burned books. These books were primarily from the Institute for Sexualwissenschaft, the Institute for Sexual Science. It was the first sexology research center in the world and pioneered publications on gender and sexuality, offering education to both health professionals and lay people alike. I share this story to illustrate how the destruction of science is also an attempt to control identity and define who matters.
In science, the data is the data. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. Science is a beautiful art built on a canvas of data. The best science comes from diverse ideas, from diverse people with diverse perspectives. We collectively reject that inclusion, diversity, equity, and access are bad words. In fact, programs championing these ideals should be celebrated and expanded. So DC, America, say with me, we must challenge. We must challenge. We must stand up for truth. We must stand up for truth. We must stand up for inclusion. We must stand up for inclusion. And we must stand up for science. We must stand up for science.
Diseases don't impact just Republicans or Democrats. It impacts all of us. Where will we find the treatments to alleviate their sufferings? The answer almost certainly involves the NIH.
Now guys, I started at the National Institutes of Health 3 years ago. Let me tell you, when I started, I was so proud. I had been a doctor for all of 2 weeks. And I was setting off to do science at the best place in the world. We will not stand for the dismantling of the American scientific workforce.
and water quality safe and clean, real people will get sick. When there's no one watching and alerting us to hurricanes, wildfires, and other extreme weather and climate impacts, people will die. And the administration refuses to face what science tells them. Science shines a light on this administration's lies, its misinformation, its disinformation, and its efforts to advance a corrupt agenda that benefits billionaires and fossil fuel companies at the expense of people and the planet. And so we stand together today to raise our voices together and to tell the administration that we will not back down. Today we have the opportunity and the responsibility to be united in this moment and to do everything we can to insist that the federal government works to save science and to save lives. So do not be intimidated. Do not back down. Do not let them silence you or the science that keeps us all safe.
Right now, I want you to hear from a remarkable young woman, Emily Whitehead, the very first person to receive CAR T-cell therapy. Please welcome Emily Whitehead, sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania, and her father, Tom.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Whitehead, and I am here today because almost 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia at the age of 5. The doctors told my parents that if you have a kid with cancer, ALL is the most curable. However, that wasn't the case for me. After undergoing 22 months of failed chemotherapy, they were ready to send me home on hospice and told my parents to enjoy the days that they have left with me. But miraculously, a phase 1 clinical trial at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia had just opened and was ready to try it on our first pediatric patient. In April of 2012, I became the first child in the world to receive CAR T-cell therapy, which trained my immune system to beat my cancer. Today, I am almost 13 years cancer-free. I am a sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania studying English and photography. I am a patient advocate who spreads awareness of less toxic cancer treatments that exist today because of science. Without funding research that went into developing the treatment that saved my life, I wouldn't be here today. I stand up for science for all of the other children all over the world who are fighting cancer so they can get back to their childhood outside of the hospital.
They tried to fire the people that keep our nukes safe. They tried to fire the people that keep Ebola under control. They're trying to fire scientists, innovators all across every single agency. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know the cost of what they're doing.
During the last Trump administration, I was the chair of the Science Committee Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee. And the first hearing we had was surveying the damage that had been done by the first Trump administration to the science enterprise. And it was very sad. But it was not as bad as it could be because they weren't organized yet. They are unfortunately organized now. And the damage is greater. So, I don't want to lie to you and tell you things are necessarily going to be okay, because, they may not. But what I can do is tell you that you have many members of Congress, including a lot of Republicans who are keeping their heads down, who really believe in science. And our jobs here is to give, our job here, look at there, you saw Fred Upton. He was a really, frankly, if all Republicans were like him, the world would be a better place, okay? But there are others, and our jobs are to give them, if not the stiffness of spine, at least the viscosity of spine, in order to actually stand up for what they know is right, because they do.
Franklin once said that to safeguard democracy, the people must have a keen sense of independence, self-respect, and their oneness. And I am feeling that oneness here today. I'm absolutely feeling it here today.
My name is Nathaniel Brought, and last Friday I resigned my position with NIH via a resignation letter I submitted to Matt Memley, posted on LinkedIn, and which was published in the Washington Post yesterday. My career started on a pair of yellow footprints on Paris Island in July of 2001. That journey took me to 3 separate continents. During my career, I found myself in Iraq, tracking and eliminating terrorist targets. I found myself at Fort Meade, Maryland, battling the proliferation of nuclear weapons and tracing terrorist financing. I found myself with the dubious honor of interrupting a meeting to inform Secretary Janet Napolitano of the Boston Marathon bombing. Finally, in August of 2023, I realized my career-long dream when I took my position as the director of the Executive Secretariat at NIH. It will be tempting for many to assume that I'm merely bitter after a long election season where my preferred candidate lost. But I can assure you that's not the case. In 24 years of federal service, I spent 4 years working for the president that I voted for. I never agreed with everything that I had to do, but I never had an issue doing what needed to be done to follow the laws passed by Congress and implement the priorities of whoever the current president was. But that's not what I encountered in January and February of this year. What I instead encountered was a lawless administration dead set on usurping the power of the other branches of government, of finding new and creative ways to disobey court orders. Towards the end of my time with NIH, I sat in meetings where I repeatedly challenged leadership on the illegal actions of this administration. Though we agreed that we were not in compliance with lawful court orders, as the Constitution would demand, we did nothing in our official capacities to keep our oaths of office and demand our leaders follow the guiding principles that this country was founded on. The separation of powers, the rule of law, and equal protection for all Americans under the law. Instead, we actively implemented unscientific and unconstitutional executive orders at the expense of our trans and intersex colleagues and fellow citizens. Instead, we held tight, hoping that any day now, the administration would allow us to begin respecting the law again. Instead, we followed an acting director who I have reason to believe was not legally appointed to that task. Instead, we denigrated our reputation and our legacy worldwide by following a pseudoscience snake oil salesman who's been installed as the head of HHS. And we suffered all of these harms because President Trump does not have the integrity as a leader to admit he made the decisions that his base resented during COVID. He refuses to admit that he scapegoats NIH for merely advising him and having no authority to issue orders on our own. Those were his decisions. Contrary to what Fox News would have you believe, Tony Fauci is not a criminal mastermind who spent 5 decades saving millions of lives around the world so that people into wearing masks. The fact that President Trump has repeatedly put Dr. Fauci's life in danger to avoid acknowledging his own accountability is a tragedy and a national embarrassment. The future of science in America faces unique challenges and nearly insurmountable obstacles to recover from so much damage in such a short time. We've done irreparable harm to our universities and research institutions here at home. We've done obscene amounts of damage to our international partnerships. We need to figure out how to stop this administration from dismantling our country's scientific community and selling it off to the lowest bidders at big pharma companies owned by their allies, so that we ensure science continues to advance for everyone. We need to figure out how to reestablish our place at the forefront of scientific research so that we do not spend decades lagging behind adversarial nations who continue to advance and invest in the future. And unbelievably, the unique challenges facing the future of science in this country are not my leading cause for concern or the main reason why I'm here today. As serious as those concerns are, they're offset by one very simple reality. The future of scientific research in America will be inconsequential if we fail to secure the future of democracy and the rule of law.
So come on, you people, and stand up for science. Join this alliance to make those dreams clear. It's of, it's by, and it's for the people. What Lincoln was thinking, it's now, and it's here.
My friends, science is part of the American story. If the United States is to lead the world, science cannot be suppressed. And so today, my friends, we demand that scientists not be censored, that there be legal safeguards to prevent political interference in their research, and that they be enabled to communicate their findings freely. Furthermore, we demand that all of us, the public, have access to scientific information. All the data, reports, and resources that were available before this president swore to uphold the U.S. Constitution in January of this year. This is our right. We paid for this science with our tax dollars. As we stand here today, certain elements in our own government have suppressed references to climate change, have advocated against life-saving vaccines, and have ordered an automatic review of papers for the purpose of censorship.
1984!
Papers include certain words like female. Over there, my friends, is the U.S. Capitol. To the other side, the side restricting access to scientific reports, scientific data and resources, we ask, what are you afraid of? What is it about the process of science, modern medicine, caring for our neighbors, or Women's History Month that you all find so scary? My friends, science is in the national interest. Censoring science is not. I encourage those on the other side to break ranks, become leaders, oppose this suppression of science. The founders embraced the idea that by promoting science and engineering, our citizens would be free to do research and to innovate, which would in turn stimulate the economy, help us compete in the world stage, and keep us safe, ultimately improving the lives of all of us. Every citizen, each of us, wants a better future for ourselves and for our families. Together we can and we must stand up for science. Thank you. Let's change the world. Thank you all.
I'm here as a true blue, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat to lay my cards on the table. But I know all of us are here across the political spectrum as champions of science. So I wanted to begin my remarks as your last speaker, and I've been given an hour and 48 minutes. I wanted to end on a bipartisan note by invoking our last great Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. And now Lincoln was a man of science, a man of reason. He was a champion of immigration and immigrants. He was an enemy of the know-nothings, and he hated conspiracy theory. He was a champion of liberty and union. He was an enemy of the monarchs, the oligarchs, the theocrats, the slave masters, and the autocrats. And if Lincoln were here today, he would be here today. And I've got to say, since I'm trying to mark this now, this is my 10th rally since this nightmare started. And remember, my friends, I just met somebody, it was her first rally. Remember this, a rally a day keeps the fascists away. But I know Lincoln's not here, but I came to ask America's greatest scientists who've assembled here today some questions, because I work on Capitol Hill and I've got some real uncertainty and confusion now about some things. So I wonder if you could answer some yes or no questions, as we say. First of all, can you actually cure COVID-19 by injecting yourself with bleach? Thank you. Can you redirect a hurricane with a thick Sharpie? Can you cure or even treat autism with right-wing conspiracy theories? Can you reverse climate change by increasing carbon emissions and then banning the use of the words climate change? Well, can you make a democratic leader into a dictator by calling him a dictator? Can you turn a fascist like Vladimir Putin into a democratic leader by calling him a genius? So if you're telling me you can't cure COVID-19 by injecting yourself with bleach, if you can't redirect a hurricane with a Sharpie, if you can't cure autism with right-wing conspiracy theories, my friends, are you gonna lie down and let the autocrats, the plutocrats, the kleptocrats, the theocrats, the dogie bureaucrats, the oligarchs, the conspiracy theorists, the liars, and the dictators roll all over you in 2025 or 2026? I didn't think so. I got another question I really did want to ask one of you scientists, which is, why do the people who believe in social Darwinism not believe in Darwinism? But look, they want to replace the science of Francis Collins and Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein and Ben Franklin with the science of Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Robert F. Kennedy. They want to replace science with political science, but I want to teach them a little bit of real political science, which is the kind that I know, because they seem to need a refresher course in the United States Constitution. So, our founders were Enlightenment thinkers. They were scientists. They were engineers. They were builders. They were men and women of reason. They designed a constitution based on representative democracy. They overthrew a king. They defeated monarchy. They defeated theocracy. They separated church and state. The Constitution, they wrote a preamble. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, right? UAW. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and preserve to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of liberty, do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of these United States of America. And the very next line took the sovereignty of the people and set up Article 1 saying all legislative power is vested in the Congress of the United States of America. In the Congress. We've got the lawmaking power. If anybody is going to tear down the NIH, if anybody is going to dismantle the Agency for International Development, if anybody is going to take down the Food and Drug Administration, it's going to be the Congress of the United States, not Donald Trump, not Elon Musk, not Doge. We created these institutions and we fund these institutions. And an Appropriations Act is an act of Congress. It's a federal law, like the law you can't assault federal officers. That's what an Appropriations Act is. It's not a budgetary recommendation. If we put the money into NIH, you spend the money on NIH. So you go from Article 1, which lays out all the powers of Congress, page after page after page, to regulate commerce domestically and internationally, to declare war, the budget, taxes, you name it, all of it is in there. And then even in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and all other powers necessary and proper to the execution of the foregoing powers. Then you come to Article 2. Four short paragraphs. One of them is all about how you impeach a president for treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. And by the way, my esteemed, admired scientists, don't ever buy that 5th grade dogma of 3 co-equal branches. First of all, co-equal is not even a word, okay? Co-equal is like extremely unique. If they're saying we have 3 equal branches, go say it, but it's wrong. Because if we were 3 equal branches, why do we have the right to impeach and try and convict the president, and he doesn't have the right to impeach, try and convict us. We had a revolution against a king and a monarch, and in the Articles of Confederation, we didn't even have a president. That came after in the Constitution. Why? Well, here's the core job. The core job of the president, you read it in Article 2, to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. To take care that the laws are faithfully executed, not distorted, not trashed, not thrown away, not maligned. Take care that the laws are faithfully executed. That's your job, Donald Trump. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Well, here's somebody else who's got a job. Article 3, the judicial power, right? The Supreme Court. Well, J.D. Vance tells us, Donald Trump tells us, they get to decide what the law is. The executive branch will finally tell us what the law is. Now they got to go back and read Marbury versus Madison, Chief Justice John Marshall in 1803. It is emphatically the province and the duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. It's emphatically the province and the duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. And in that case, they made the whole thing very clear, because Donald Trump says, I've got complete control with my unitary executive theory over everybody under me. I can tell them to do whatever I want, and that's the law. I don't think so. In Marbury versus Madison, the court said that the court had the authority to tell Secretary of State James Madison to deliver a commission to a judge, even if Thomas Jefferson was telling him not to. The court has the authority to do it because that is the court's job. Now, Article 6 of the Constitution says this, and they need a very deep refresher on this one. The Constitution of the United States and the laws under it are the supreme law of the land. We have no kings here. We have no queens here. We have no czars. We have no monarchs. We have no emperors. And we have no dictators of a new Silicon Valley techno state. We have just the Constitution, and if you want to amend the Constitution, there's a way to do that too. A 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate and 3/4 of the states. Now, I can't take them all the way through the entire Bill of Rights, but I do want to talk about the amendment that is most crucial to science, which is the First Amendment to the Constitution. Our framers wrote a First Amendment and rebelled against centuries of religious warfare, holy crusades, inquisitions, witchcraft trials. They wanted to found government on a different basis, which is the rights of the people, everybody being treated equally, and everybody having the right to speak, the right of free press, the right of the people to assemble, the right of petition for redress of grievances, free exercise of religion, no establishment of religion. In America, we do not censor words. We don't kick reporters out of the White House because they call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico. Diversity is not an illegal word. Equity is not an illegal word. Inclusion is not an illegal word. They are not unconstitutional. But you know what is unconstitutional? Insurrection. Insurrection, violent insurrection. In 5 or 6 different places our Constitution condemns and opposes insurrection. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 says Congress has the power to call forth the militias from the states in order to repel invasions and suppress insurrections. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says that anyone is sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution who violates the Constitution by engaging in insurrection or rebellion shall never be allowed to hold federal or state office. Again, our Constitution is an anti-insurrection Constitution. Our Constitution does not allow for the establishment of religion. And we have to fight these battles every day on Capitol Hill. I have a colleague who got up not long ago and he said the moral downfall of America was in 1962 in Engel versus Vitale when the Supreme Court banned prayer in the public schools. And I got up and I said, you know what? The Supreme Court never banned prayer in the public schools. As long as there are pop math quizzes, there will be prayer in the public schools. Anybody can pray whenever he or she wants to pray. What the Supreme Court found is that government bureaucrats cannot compel your children to pray against the beliefs of your family. And now Louisiana has voted to endorse the 10 Commandments and to post the 10 Commandments. So, of course, my MAGA colleagues show up, and what do you know? We've got to endorse the 10 Commandments. I said, gee, the 10 Commandments have been doing fine for millennia without an endorsement by the Freedom Caucus and the House of Representatives. No, they insist. It's got to be done. They say the 10 Commandments are the basis of the Bill of Rights. Really, I said? Really? The first commandment is, thou shalt have no other God before me. The First Amendment says, thou shalt make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Hard for me to see that, but no, they insist. They want to go ahead. They want to vote on the 10 Commandments. So I went to the Rules Committee. I said, you know what? If we're going to vote on the 10 Commandments, we should have to vote on each commandment separately, okay? Not let them get away with that omnibus package. And you shouldn't be able to vote for any commandment you've ever violated yourself. You know, I noticed that the Speaker's Chief of Staff was picked up on DUI the other night. They're not that into DEI, but they love DUI. We got to stop those DUI hires on Capitol Hill. My friends, let me just end with like a thought or two. I learned when I was in school that the truth of an empirical proposition is whether it corresponds to reality. The truth of an abstract conceptual proposition is whether it corresponds to the rules of logic. But the truth of a moral and political proposition is the courage with which you act to make it real in the world. And that's why this march and rally is so important, because your determination to defend science, reason, and democracy against authoritarianism means that we can win this struggle, because the scientists are in the streets today. I'm going to leave you with the words of two great fighters for democracy. One of them, the great Frederick Douglass, who was born about an hour away from here at the White River Plantation into slavery, who escaped from slavery to become a great freedom fighter. And through the Civil War and Reconstruction, he said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And the struggle may be moral, it may be material, it may be moral and material, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. A message to you from a great Marylander, I'll leave you with the words of another great rationalist and radical democratic patriot from the 18th century, the great Tom Paine, who my son Tommy was named after. And Tom Paine got over here in 1774, 2 years before the American Revolution. He fell in love with the promise of America. He said, if this land lives up to its values and its ideals, it will become an asylum to humanity, he said. Now, not an insane asylum, mind you. Not an insane asylum, an asylum to humanity, a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from religious, political, and intellectual repression all over the world. And then he wrote that book that ignited the American Revolution, Common Sense. Common Sense, he wrote. The sixth sense we all have when we're willing to reason together and put aside all of the dogma and the conspiracy theory and what we would call in our time propaganda and disinformation. And anyway, that book helped ignite the revolution. You know, George Washington had the soldiers at Valley Forge reading by campfire Common Sense to everyone. But it was a tough year, and the country was split. The people were split right down the middle. And half the people were running around saying, you can't beat the kings and the queens and the autocrats and the monarchs. You can't separate church and state. You can't found government on the principle of reason, science, empiricism. It won't work. But half of the people said, yes, we can. We can build government on the principle of the consent of the governed and the freedoms and rights of the people. But Paine wanted to write a pamphlet to give people hope during a very dark, hard time. And he wrote this pamphlet, a beautiful pamphlet called The American Crisis. And I just want to quote a little passage to you. I'm going to update the language pursuant to instructions from Nancy Pelosi, because she said Tom Paine was a feminist, and that he was. He was fighting for women's voting rights in the 18th century. He was. He was an abolitionist too. But anyway, Paine said, these are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country, but everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end will be our victory. Let's make that victory ours.